Ladies and gentlemen, and here we are back with another Carlisle Cult Cinemacast. And today I'm joined by a legend of a writer. You know, he's wrote so many things: Dumb and Dumber, Stuck on You, Joyride 2, In the Blood, Dumb and Dumber 2. He was a writer for Paul Reiser on one of his stand-up specials. He was also a writer on the very, very funny Our Planet Tonight, which I watched recently and thoroughly enjoyed. And I'm pleased to have you here, Bennett Yellin.
Hello, Paul. Thank you. My gosh, I feel like I'm at my funeral. I just had all my credits roll before me. Even some I forgot. You are commended that if you did if you actually saw some of those, bless you. They probably haven't been seen in years, some of those.
I'll admit I haven't seen the Paul Reiser stand-up special, but I do like Paul Reiser, and it will be something I'll be searching for. But I did watch Our Planet Tonight last night, actually.
Yeah.
And I sat there giggling away to myself. You know, I thought it was very, very funny.
Yeah, that was just a pilot. It didn't sell as a series, but it did. We made the pilot, and it did actually air. So yeah.
I mean, you had John Standing.
I love John Standing. Love him. When I was so excited that when we had him for that segment, I just followed him around all day and said, "John Standing, I think I scared him." Because I love him so much. I think he's a terrific actor. He's done so many great things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he'd been in so much. I mean, Hammer films and so much stuff. I mean, he's just a British.
I loved him in Privates on Parade and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant as well. Privates on Parade. I've not seen that for a few years. That was one of those films when I seen it because there's a bit of naughtiness in it. I was only a kid. So when I got to see it, it was like, oh, I've seen this film, man. Privates on Parade. It was a book and all the rest of it. Funny. You've got to see it, lads. And my mates, because I got to see anything I wanted as a kid, we had no censorship.
That's nice.
Except for pornography. You know,
so you mean like hardcore pornography? Not like
that's it.
I don't know a lot of kids that get allowed to see that. So
no, we just found it in hedges. We just found it in hedges and under bushes.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no internet back then, you know. It was found under hedges and things.
It was part of your childhood.
That's it. They don't know what they're missing nowadays. They got it way too easy.
Oh, too many rules.
Exactly, way too many rules. I'm already laughing away. Sorry. But no, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And also, as you've probably gathered, this is a no holds barred podcast. If you want to swear, you can swear. You can,
Oh, so good.
We're very, very un-PC. I don't believe in that. So
perfect. I'll pick it up a notch then. I'll
very, very
turn up the 4-letter words.
That's it. As long as you don't start doing heroin or something on thing, that I think the kids might get a bit, if you start.
Yeah, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
We're going to be fine. But no, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
And big thank you to Steve Joyner for helping set this up, because the man's a legend and has been helping me out quite a bit. I think his little pet project, he's took us under his wing.
Nice.
So that's nice. But as I say, absolute pleasure to have you on. And I mean, you've been writing for God since the 80s.
Yeah. Mid-80s. Yeah.
Mid-80s. And I believe was one of your early scripts Dust to Dust?
Yeah, Dust to Dust was the script that Peter Farrelly and I, who met in graduate school, we wrote it together in grad school. We weren't there to write screenplays. We were there to learn to get a master's of fine arts in fiction. So we were both writing short stories, but we met the first day of class and we instantly knew we had the same twisted, disturbed, unpleasant sense of humor. We just instantly knew. And so we said, we should write a movie at some point because we both have the same ridiculous. And so we wrote this Dust to Dust. And we were in grad school. We were just finishing grad school. And it got into the hands of, we didn't know anybody. You know, Peter is still, I guess, from Cumberland, Rhode Island. His family had no connection to film and television. His father was a doctor, you know, and I was from Los Angeles, and my family, my parents had nothing to do with the business, but I did grow up here in LA. I mean, and both of us gave Dust to Dust to two different people. Pete gave it to on a date in New York. He was with this girl, and she said that Eddie Murphy had moved in next door to her parents in Alpine, New Jersey. And he said, "Did you ever see him?" She said, "Oh yeah, he was washing his car. So I waved him." So he gave her Dust to Dust. She called a week later and said he was coming out to get his mail, and I ran out and gave it to him. Again, this couldn't happen today. You couldn't approach Eddie Murphy with a script today. You know, a bodyguard would tackle you. You know, also there are no scripts. You know, now everything's everything's on a flash drive or it's emailed. Meanwhile, I was in LA for like a couple of weeks, and my sister would love to dance, and she would go to this dance club. She had met and become friends with David Zucker. David Zucker, one of the Zucker brothers, who wrote Airplane, and Naked Gun, and I asked,
movie.
Yeah, right. And I asked her, and by the way, this sister is named Freda. We named the character Freda Felcher in Dumb and Dumber 1 and 2 after my sister Freda. I said, "Freda, would you ask David if he'd read our script?" And she said, "Sure." And David said, "Yes." So on the West Coast, David Zucker read Dust to Dust, and a few months passed, and suddenly, oh, this is good. This is the best part. A few months passed, and suddenly, I'm graduating from this graduate program, which is back in Amherst, Massachusetts. I'm about to move back to LA, and I get a letter from my dad. I'm literally moving in 2 days. I get a letter from my dad, and I open it up, and there's an article in the Los Angeles Times, which I'm going to show you the article because I have it. And it's called the Eddie Murphy Script Derby, and it's all about what is Eddie Murphy going to do next, because he was huge. He was off of Beverly Hills Cop, so he was like the #1 box office, and it was all about what's he going to do. And my father wrote on the top of the article, "Is this your movie?" So this is the article from the LA Times. I'm going to read you the opening line. On a recent Sunday morning, Eddie Murphy glanced out the living room window of his Alpine, New Jersey home and noticed a neighbor standing in the front yard. Under her arm, she carried a script, a sight that made Murphy take a deep breath as he opened the front door. After chatting briefly, Murphy dutifully tucked Dust to Dust under his arm. Later that night, on a flight to Houston for a concert, he started to read. He liked what he read. It made him laugh. Now Murphy wants to option the story, and the neighbor is on the verge of selling her first script to Hollywood. That's what happened on the East Coast. What happened was they were looking for us. Paramount was looking for us. They were contacting all the agencies here, but we weren't anywhere because we weren't there. We weren't signed or anything like that. So they planted that, and we called in and said, "That's us. We're those guys." And they said, "We've been looking for you." And then my sister, Freda, not Felcher, but Freda called. She called me and she said, "David Zucker called me. He wants to talk to you. He gave it to his brother and their other partner, and they want to talk to you about writing for them." So that's how we got started, Peter Farrelly and I, like in a way that could never happen now. Because honestly, if you have a script and you want to get it to someone because you think, you want George Clooney to read it, you can't get it to them. That's what agents are for. That's what managers are for. They're blocking that access, you know. you couldn't just meet him at some place and he'd say, sure, I'll read it, because you have to take into consideration, if you say yes, already you're putting yourself at risk for being sued. Somebody will say, I gave my script to Bennett Yellin, and then he wrote a movie that came out that had something that was similar, and so it can't happen now, but it could happen then, and it happened twice, and as a result, our career got started.
There was a lot more trust as well back then.
Yeah.
And there wasn't as many sharks, shall we say, back then as there is now.
And you can access people. I mean, like Eddie Murphy's neighbor. Now, wherever Eddie Murphy lives now, his neighbor can't access him, I don't think. Yeah, that's how he got started. That was Dust to Dust, our first script.
And obviously that led you on to Our Planet Tonight, because the Zucker brothers worked on that. So that's obviously what led you to that.
Right. And we also worked on a little bit on Ruthless People. We did a little comedy punch-up.
Oh, great film.
But that was a great script. I mean, that was Dale Launer's fantastic script, and we just threw some jokes into it. But Dale Launer is the author of that 1,000%. He's great.
No, it's a great film.
Yeah,
and very funny as well.
Yeah, it is.
With such a great cast.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was
who were at the time were kind of at the top of their game.
I remember I went to the set and I was sitting down in a chair, and next to me in another chair was this blousy woman with her hair was kind of, and so I didn't even think to talk with her. And then somebody came up to her and said, "Bet, we're ready for you." And it was Bette Midler, because she's made up as the character like before the do-over, and I didn't even know it was her. I was like, damn it, I missed my chance to chat with Bette Midler.
That's it, the legendary Bette Midler.
Legendary.
Complete.
Not as legendary as me, but legendary.
No. You know, she's still a legend, but you are a comedy legend. You know, for writing the next film, mostly for writing the next film we're going to talk about, which is from 1994. Starring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, Lauren I've got Lauren Holly. That was it. Yeah. Just so funny. I went to the cinema to see it when it was released in England, and I can remember there was a bunch of lads, and we were just sat there pissing ourselves laughing. It was just so, especially the PT and the parrot bit. It was just so sick, but in such a funny way, and it was just our sense of humour. And it just, you know what I mean? It's been a film I've went back to, especially when it was first released. God, it seemed to be a go-to for whether you had lads round or whether you had a girl round.
Yes, yeah, it was like a divining rod for some guys. Like, should I date this girl? If she thinks this movie's funny, I will. And if she doesn't, right? Yeah. How old were you when you saw it? How old were you in 94? Can I ask?
94, I was 20.
Okay, so you were out of your teens. Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, so just out of my teens. I was maybe 20, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Petey is we were big fans of Albert Brooks. We love Albert Brooks. And there's an Albert Brooks movie, his second movie that he wrote and directed, called Modern Romance, where he has a bird named Petey, and we loved Albert Brooks, so we named the bird Petey. That's where Petey came from.
Fantastic. Albert Brooks has made some great films as well.
Love him.
It's a shame he doesn't make as many as he used to.
No, I think I don't think he'll make any more. But there's I don't know. Do they have HBO there? Because there's a fantastic documentary. Oh, there's a new documentary called Defending My Life, and it's about Albert Brooks, and it was made by Rob Reiner. So it's Rob Reiner sitting down with their best friends from high school.
Yeah.
And so it's a very fun. I mean, it's a really good documentary. It's coming out. I think it's about to come out, or it just came out here. Maybe it'll
I'll
show.
find it. I'll find it somehow.
Yeah,
I'll find it somehow. Yeah, we get all the other. We seem to get all the other streaming
but
places
not.
except HBO Max.
Ah,
We are supposed to be getting it, I believe, but I don't know when.
okay. Well, what,
So,
look for that Albert Brooks documentary. You'll laugh. Just the scenes that they show from his movies, you're laughing at it. But he's also such a witty, funny guy.
I think Lost in America is one of my favorites that he
Ah,
did.
great, great. His first one, Real Life, I ran to see it because I loved him from the Saturday Night Live shorts he would do, and I said, I got to see this guy's movie. I think he's really funny. And there weren't a lot of people in the theater. I was in the back of the theater. I was howling with laughter at the back of the, and there were like, I'm telling you, there were 10 people at a big theater. And so, but I like that. I always like being on the cusp of something, like you're discovering. There's this excitement. You're discovering something great rather than coming to something when it's huge and popular and.
Yeah, I'm like that. If I've missed something, I'm kind of reluctant to dive into it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know, because it's
so
already
I'll leave it.
popular. Yeah,
That's it. So I'll leave it for years. But if I've caught something right on the start,
yeah,
it's to kind of two fingers up at everybody. I was here at the start. Go on,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So yeah, and but back to Dumb and Dumber.
yeah.
I've got to ask, how did you come up with, you know, Harry and Lloyd, the two
Well,
greatest idiots in cinema?
well, this is this has been discussed before, so I could discuss it now. But here's how Dumb and Dumber was even initiated. Peter and Bobby and I had written. We were writing something for Universal Studio, for not but Universal, and it was the sequel to the movie Dragnet. Remember the Dragnet? It was Tom Hanks and Dan
Great
Aykroyd.
film, Dan Aykroyd.
Right. And the director, Tom Mankiewicz, was going to do a sequel. And we got hired to write that. And we did a really good job with that script. And somehow, the director, John Hughes, writer-director John Hughes, he had a deal at Universal as well. And I don't know how he read our Dragnet script, but he did. And he called us in and he said, you guys, you're very funny guys. Why don't you come in and pitch me a movie? And we came in, we went away, and we put together Dumb and Dumber. We pitched him. It was essentially the plot because I remember it was basically the plot because Peter reminded me years later that I pitched the moment where Lloyd says, where he says, Lloyd says, oh, Harry says, yeah, he was his head fell off. And he says, his head fell off. He goes, yeah, he was pretty old. And and Pete reminded me, and I forgot this, that John Hughes fell out of his chair laughing at that joke. So when we were done with the pitch, he said, guys, I love this. Go write it. And if I like it, I'll let you direct it. Wow. Right? I mean, we were never thinking about directing anything like that. So we went away and wrote it, and we handed it in. And this is what happened: John Hughes' his deal at Universal ended, and he didn't renew it, and he moved on to 20th Century Fox, where he got a new deal. And what happens typical of that? There could be directors, it could be actors, it could be writers who have deals. When they end at a studio, all the material they develop for the studio basically goes into a vault at the vast. Yeah, and it doesn't get developed, doesn't get made because the person leaves the studio. So after a year or two, maybe a couple of years, we always knew that Dumb and Dumber was a funny script. We went back to John and we said, could we take Dumb and Dumber around and try and set it up? And he said, yeah, you can. Yeah, but you can't use my name to set it up. Like I'm not the producer of it. And if you do, you have to pay me $1 million. So we said, we just saved $1 million by not mentioning it. And that led to us. We sent it everywhere. We were rejected everywhere. We were rejected everywhere multiple times because what happens is when you send a script back then, they would log it in. Someone would they'd write coverage on it, but then the studios would be aware that they got a script called Dumb and Dumber. Everyone said no. So we retitled it Go West and sent it out again, and everyone said no. And then we retitled it one more time, 3 titles. We retitled it A Power Tool Is Not a Toy. We just wanted it to have a strange title. And that was actually a song by a group called, I think, the New Americans. And we sent it out again, and it was ruthlessly. I mean, you have to remember that back then, this wasn't a genre that had, after Dumb and Dumber, stupid movies became a kind of genre. But back then, to get a script about 2 idiots, no studio, it's just too embarrassing. It's stupid. Stupid meant stupid, and so it didn't mean box office. It just meant this is dumb. So
stupid isn't stupid, does.
Stupid is right. But there was one company, a small company that made low budget movies called Motion Picture Corporation of America, and the 2 guys who were the owners of it, Brad Cravoy and Steve Stabler, they read it and they were like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you this one extra element that was involved with us sending it out was we weren't just sending it out, we were attaching Peter as the director. We were saying this is Peter Farrelly's director. Now Peter had never directed a thing in his life. He didn't have zero. So they're like, so you sent us a stupid script and one of the writers is attached as the director? No way. I mean, it just made it even easier to turn down. But for the Motion Picture Corporation of America,
they wanted it.
Yeah, we think this is funny and we don't care if he directs it. Fine, good. And that created a momentum, in the business. It's all about, you can take something out of thin air, but if you can get momentum going, you keep mentioning a project and this is happening and this is happening. Yeah. It kind of, the molecules start to come together very slowly. And that's what happened with this. So they were up for it. They were going to do it very low. It was going to be very low budget, but we were like, we don't care. We want this movie to get made. And at the same time as that happened, Jim Carrey had just made The Mask. He had finished Ace Ventura. It was about to come out, and he had just made The Mask at New Line. And somebody at New Line, I think it was the executive Michael DeLuca, he heard about Dumb and Dumber, and he asked to see the script, and he read it, and he said, I think this would be great for Jim. We just worked with Jim. And he showed it to Jim, and Jim was like, I love this. Now, Dumb and Dumber wasn't being made by New Line. They were being made by Motion Picture Corporation. So they called Motion Picture Corporation and said, let's co-produce this movie. And that's what happened. New Line and Motion Picture Corp co-produced Dumb and Dumber. And that's how it kind of got to Jim Carrey and all that. And at that point, again, I remember... So now it's happening. It really is happening because New Line is involved. Yeah. I remember we had said Jim Carrey's price was like $700,000, and The Mask hadn't come out yet, but Ace Ventura had, and it was a hit. He was clearly, it was a hit. The guy was becoming a star, and we said told New Line, you should get him at $700,000. Sign him now. They said, let's wait for The Mask to come out and see how that does. Well, The Mask was even a bigger hit, and now it cost them $7 million for Jim Carrey. $7 million. So I think the movie's budget was like 17 million, 7 of which was Jim. Which is absolutely worth the price because the movie ended up making $258 million, I think, in 1994.
and that was
But
on the
that's
cinema. And can you imagine what it made on VHS?
oh god, because VHS was exploding then. You know that
Yeah,
cassette rentals were huge, and it was a huge hit on
that
cassette.
VHS is one of the reasons why this whole show of mine
Yeah,
exists, because I grew up in VHS shops, um, just constantly in there looking at films. I am still now a VHS collector.
I have mine too.
It's got to be done, and I've just completed, which probably won't interest yourself, the 72 video nasties,
72
which
what?
were video nasty films,
Oh, okay. Give me
which were
yeah, what are they?
they were banned in this
Oh,
country.
wow. Give me one example.
Um, Zombie Creeping Flesh,
Okay.
Visiting Hours, Visiting
Yeah.
Hour with William Shatner.
Oh, visiting. Yeah.
Yeah, Women Behind Bars,
Yeah.
Absurd, Anthropophagus, Zombie Flesh Eaters, Inferno by Dario Argento,
Yeah. Argento, right?
Faces of Death,
Yes.
Tenebrae
Yeah.
by
Yeah. I had it.
Argento as well.
Argento.
There was a lot of Nazi exploitation
Yeah.
made by the Italians, SS Experiment Camp, SS
Right.
Love Camp,
Yeah.
um, the last orgy of the Gestapo, was it Gestapo's last orgy? Sorry, stuff like that, and Beast in Heat, and some
Titles.
wild, wild titles.
Yeah.
Um, but it had been my kind of thing since I was a kid to have all 72 on VHS, and I
And
finally
nothing,
completed it this
and
year.
that's those. It was just those, and then did the system change, and nothing was ever banned again, or
Yeah,
wasn't
basically the system changed, and what it was to do with VHS when they first came out in the UK didn't have a rating.
right? Okay, got it.
So all these films were getting released uncut, the likes of Cannibal Holocaust and
Right,
Cannibal Apocalypse and things like that. Were all getting released uncut,
yeah,
and um, some a bit like the decency people
yes.
got
League of
involved. A woman
right
called Mary, yeah,
right
a
with
woman
the
called
something
Mary Whitehouse
The Hayes
involved.
office, right? The Hayes office
Yeah,
was
and
was Clockwork Orange on the list? I know it was banned in England for years, but was that on that list too?
no, it wasn't. That wasn't banned in this country, but it was removed by Stanley Kubrick in
Right,
this
he pulled
country.
it. That's right.
Yeah,
He voluntarily pulled it because it was yeah.
that's it. A bit like The Exorcist. The Exorcist wasn't banned over here. It was just that one of the censors didn't like it, and he basically got Warner Brothers to remove it. Didn't ban it,
Wow. Just one censor,
but
one guy,
one,
or
yeah,
could have a
called James
woman. I don't
Furman,
know. Wow,
got it
that's crazy.
removed, and it didn't come back out in England until the late 90s,
Wow. Everyone
which was just insane.
everyone must have been rushed to see it then, like what's the big deal? And then because it's such a good movie, because I think it's such a masterpiece.
Oh, it is. It's a classic. So yeah, VHS is a big part of the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club, basically. Um, and
Good.
I love the VHS. But yeah, Dumb and Dumber, such a fun film, and so many iconically funny bits in it. From Mockingbird in when they're driving, they start singing Mockingbird, and the
Yeah.
most irritating sound in the world.
Which was improvised. Yes.
I can imagine it. I mean, it must have been quite. I mean, obviously the writing was fantastic, but I can imagine Jim Carrey improvising quite a few things as well.
Well, we would always shoot the script, but then Pete and Bobby, Bobby actually really co-directed it with Peter as well, but Peter gets the credit. Um, they worked a lot like the Zucker brothers, because like two of them would be on the monitor watching, and one would be actually working with the actors. That's what happened with Pete. Would be working with the actors, Bobby would be on the monitor for dumb. But we would always shoot the script, so we had it shot, and then they would say, okay, you got some ideas, go. And they do takes and let the guys go. And Jim would come up to them and say, I got a great idea for this, and they go, yeah, let's do it after we shoot the script. So yeah. And of course, I mean, they really just resonated with each other. I mean, they're very good friends as a result of that meeting on that movie, and they just played against each other great. I mean, that's what makes the movie. Yeah,
the chemistry is there. It's fantastic. You know what I mean? And every little part of that film, it's lightning in a bottle. That film, it's one of those films. It's lightning in a bottle. You've managed to capture something extremely special. I know when it came out, it got kind of mixed reviews.
Oh, mixed. But I think it was more toward negative than mixed. By the way, I just have to tell you this because my mom only kept one review of all the reviews. My mom only kept one review, and it was cut out and it was on her refrigerator. And I swear, I wish I could remember what paper so I could find the review. But in the review, and she had it highlighted, it said, "The writer's mother should be ashamed of themselves." That was the review that Mom kept.
Brilliant. Well, that's it. Obviously, she raised a son with a sense of humour, so you've got to have got it from somewhere. Obviously, Your mother's got the similar sense of humour, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm just trying to think what we were saying then.
You were saying that it didn't get great reviews when it came out, and
yeah,
mixed reviews. And I was pushing
mixed reviews, and then you went, no, it got bad reviews. But I mean, it got, as I said, mixed reviews, but it went on to make an absolute fortune at the box office, as we've discussed. And it just goes to show, and I say it all the time, a lot of these critics don't know anything. They know nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
let the audience decide.
Yeah. Well, it did. But the other, and I say this immodestly, Dumb and Dumber did something else besides being successful financially, which was great for the people who, but what it did, and this is not something. First of all, if everyone could make a movie be a hit, we'd all be making hits. So for it to have been a hit was a lovely thing. I mean, thank goodness we started with a good script, and then every element as it got involved, the writers, the directors, the actors, the crew, everyone added their best to it, and it made it better and better. And so it ended up with something that was funny. But here's the thing that Dumb and Dumber did that doesn't happen a lot, and you can't make it happen. And I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but it became so popular over the years, 10 years, 20 years, that it became part of the zeitgeist. It is referenced all the time. And people have such warm feelings about it. Parents, kids who became parents, became grandparents, and it's intergenerational. And you can't make something part of the zeitgeist. You can't, like Rocky Horror Picture Show is part of the zeitgeist. You couldn't make that happen. It became, and we're in that bizarre, rarefied company, and it blows my mind because, as a kid, what I wanted to do as a kid, I knew it when I was very young. I said, I want to do something that takes people away from their everyday lives and makes them happy and makes them laugh and gives them something to be happy about. That was my dream as a kid. And to think that I'm associated with something that has that sort of resonance with the, it is very, very satisfying, soul satisfying for me. I'm really very touched and grateful that I'm part of a project, something like that, because in my head I didn't say I want to do something that's part of the zeitgeist. As a kid, I was just like, I want to do something that makes people smile, and to be a part of it and to still have that happening today is lovely.
I was going to say it's nearly 30-year old now. It's 30-year old next year,
Yeah,
and it's still making people laugh 30 years on. And I mean, you get films that come out and win Oscars and are the big fanfare of the day, and then a year later, everyone's forgotten about them,
it's
and
exactly
you're
right.
thinking, well, it's something I could say all the time about it. And yet you've got films like Dumb and Dumber, 30-year-old, as you say, got less than favourable reviews, but was
Mhm.
loved by the public, which means it's now going to have a life. It's going to have a continued life, and it will continue for another 30 years, another 60 years. That'll be a film that will always be around because one of the reasons why it makes you smile, it makes you laugh, and
Yeah,
that's one of the greatest things. It's funny and it's
I
great and it's clever and it's simple and it's all of that, but
I can't tell you
it's
how many
just a
people
good film.
when they I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's all right.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people when they do find out that I was involved with it, because it's not, I don't lead with it. I don't say, hello, my name is Ben, and I wrote down, but when they find out, I cannot tell you how many people not only say, I love that movie, but they say, I've seen it 20 times, 30 times. Just 3 weeks ago, I ran into someone I have a little decal on the back of my car that's Harry and Lloyd on the motorbike. And so, but it's like a silhouette, so you'd have to know what it is. And some guy was walking by and he pointed and he goes, ha, Dumb and Dumber. I said, yeah, it is Dumb and Dumber. He said, I love that movie. I've seen it 200 times. I hear that all the time, that people have seen it repeatedly. So it's a movie that you can come back to, and the people put it on again. The guys get together and they order pizza and beer and they watch it, or someone's showing it to his
It is.
girlfriend, or
It lands in, as we said there. It's be a pizza, a bong
yes,
kind of film.
on would help it.
It's a stoner film. It's a stoner film. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's got that kind of humor. Um,
yes.
and I'd say very much the same with Our Planet Tonight because I was very when I was watching it. So, you know, excellent. If
Yeah,
you know, you know. I think you get what I'm saying there, Bennett, without
yes,
actually
yeah.
saying it. But yeah, and Dumb and Dumber is that kind of thing as well. It's got so many different layers of funny.
Yeah.
It's
People
got
love
it's
it.
got the it's got clever humor, it's got potty humor, it's got silly humor, it's got all in this one film, and great cast. It's absolutely fantastic.
And its sensibility was so much Peter and Bobby's and my sensibilities. I mean, like that, our brains came up with that, the whatever the ingredients were for that movie that made it work. That's directly from our heads. And by the way, I when we went away after John Hughes said go write a movie, and we were sitting down trying to figure it out, I said, guys, have you ever seen have you ever seen one of the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby Road 2 movies? And they were like, no. I said, okay, we're going to watch two of them. And we should do this as a road movie. We should take these characters and put them on the road. And it's Dumb and Dumber is one of the road 2 movies. It could have starred Bing Crosby and Bob Hope because the dynamic, which we based on
Yeah,
the road movies, is they both like the same girl and they're stabbing each other in the back together, and that's right out of that. It's also out of
it's that.
Some Like It Hot, which was my favorite. It still is my favorite comedy, and I showed them Some Like It Hot, and so we very much designed Harry and Lloyd to be very like Joe and Jerry in Some Like It Hot, and like Bing and Bob in the road movies.
I mean,
It
it's
was
a it's a great farce as well. You
Yes.
know what I mean? It's got so many, farcical moments in it with them two.
And again, we never said, "Oh, let's write a farce." We just said, "What makes us laugh? What's funny?" And as we're creating, we didn't. There wasn't an intention to be farcical, satirical. I mean, not intentionally, but that's just. But we liked slapstick. We liked broad things like that, and we couldn't believe we got away with. Again, I still can't believe this is a PG-13 movie, and I can't believe that we've got a character named Freda Felcher in a PG-13 movie. I can't believe we've got the toilet scene that we got for the first time we actually had the first rough cut was like 2 hours, 30 minutes long. It was long. And I had Jeff Daniels, agent or manager, sitting next to me. And with the bathroom scene, the toilet scene was easily twice as long. There was more to it. Oh, happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to you. Well,
I'll take it.
Appearing from nowhere. Yeah, I don't know where it came from.
I'll take them. I'll take those. But we showed it to Jeff Daniels' manager or agent, and the toilet scene. Jeff's on the toilet, and it goes on twice as long. It was twice as long. And he turned to me, and he was ashen, and he said, "You're cutting all that, aren't you?" I said, "Absolutely." There's no. So I can't believe that they let us even leave the amount that we left in for that scene. It's so, But then we didn't think when we were making it. We didn't think, oh, this is pushing boundaries in terms
The
of
boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just like, it makes us laugh. And it certainly made them laugh when we shot it. So, and the crew.
Oh, as I say, there was me and a bunch of mates seeing it when it first opened, our local cinema, and we all sat there. We'd already seen Ace Ventura and The Mask, so it was just
Yes.
like, he's the next Jim Carrey vehicle. Let's go and see this. And it was just, you hadn't seen things like it for such a long time.
Yeah.
And the potty humor was brilliant. We all love a bit of, we all love potty humor. And it is just fantastic. How did they get you to, obviously Dumb and Dumber is such a big hit, and there've been talks of a sequel for years.
Yeah.
So what was the final kind of, okay, come on, let's make a sequel?
Here's what happened. Jim was on vacation in Hawaii, and I'm going to say this was probably 2012. And he turned on his TV in the hotel room, and Dumb and Dumber was on. So he watched it, and he called Peter the next day, and he said, "I haven't seen it in years, and I just watched it, and it's hilarious. Let's make another one." That's truly how it was initiated. Just Jim had seen it, and there'd been all this distance since he'd seen it last, and yeah, he said, "Let's make another one." I remember Pete calling me up again days later. Yeah,
and again, funny film. Just so much fun. And then I've got to ask you about, which I know you weren't really involved in, but just the characters, the prequel. So, what are your thoughts on the prequel? Because let's be honest, it's not very good.
Here's what happened. New Line wanted to make a sequel, I guess, right after Dumb, but they didn't want to spend the money to get. At that point, Jim Carrey was, they just didn't want to spend all the money to get those actors, I guess. So somebody at New Line said, "Why don't we make a prequel? Why don't we have it be Harry and Lloyd in high school?" And they contacted us and said, "This is what we want to do. We're going to make a prequel." And we said, "Well, we don't." The whole joke of Dumb and Dumber is that they're adults who are adolescents. It's not funny when they're teenagers who are stupid. It's really funny when they're adults who are stupid. So we said nope, and we backed out of it. And my name is just listed as an executive. I get an executive producer credit, which is just just a name. I have nothing to do with it creatively at all. And Peter and Bobby didn't even.
No,
but
I didn't think you did. I just obviously had to ask you about it.
I think I remember they sent me the script, and I read through the script, and I said, good Lord, they should allow me to do a rewrite of this because this is awful. But then they went ahead and made it and released it. I remember going to this. It was dismal, just dismal, and it was kind of like, ugh. And it says everything about that it's all about Jim and Jeff too. I mean, it's those actors in those roles. It needs to be them. That's why it was so much fun working on the sequel, because the official sequel, because they were both in 100%. It was a blast. It was a blast writing it and making it. We had a lot of fun. And it's weird because we were not the same people making it in 2012, 2013. We actually shot it in 2013, that we were making it
20 years later.
Yeah. We had film experience and all this stuff. And even in writing it, we said, we need to just do what we would do. We need to write just what we would want to write and not worry about what we think an audience wants to see. I mean, we didn't have those concerns when we first wrote it. We had to kind of get back to that place of naivete and simplicity. And we did. I mean, it was kind of easy to say, let's just do what we want to do here. Yeah. And by the way, when it came out, a lot of fans of Dumb and Dumber who were so excited about it, they went to it and they were angry at us. They were pissed. We got a lot of comments. I think what happens is when somebody loves a movie, you literally it becomes a part of you. You kind of internalize it organically. And so Harry and Lloyd, for a lot of people, were these characters, and they operated in a certain way in their heads. And when we came out with Dumb and Dumber 2, they felt that they weren't the same characters as it wasn't in Dumb and Dumber 1, or maybe they thought they were more mean-spirited because they were 20 years older or something. But in our minds, they were the same. And so I was kind of sad that a lot of people didn't take to the second one as warmly as we did, but we had a blast. It was so much fun.
But I think that's a massive problem with the modern audience.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes they put
the times are
things
different. Yeah.
Well, there's that as well, and sometimes things are on such a pedestal.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? You can't possibly reach it. You can't. Yeah. I think we.
And it's a great film. And it's funny, and it's.
I'm glad you like it.
What I mean?
I think it's funny too.
I enjoy it. I think it's a great film. I've got to ask you. I mean, obviously working with the Farrellys, you've done Stuck on You.
Yeah, my involvement with Stuck on You was more of a story. What here's what happened. I had seen an old, I think it was made in the 50s, an old weird exploitation movie that starred two. Back then they called them Siamese twins, but now it's conjoined. Two conjoined women, sisters, obviously, named Daisy and Violet Hilton. They were, I guess, like that's kind of a sideshow act, but they were joined at the hip. And so they made this exploitation movie called Chained for Life was the name of the movie. And it's all about these two, and they're really pretty. They were really pretty. These two sisters, and one of them, they're each dating guys, and one of them is dating this no goodnik who is abusive to her. And so he's abusive to her, and in self-defense, she accidentally kills him. And so they both go on trial for murder, for manslaughter. And I said, this is ridiculous. And I showed it to them. And I said, we should do a comedy about conjoined twins. And that set off the idea for Stuck on You. So I'm listed as story. I'm listed as the story. I got a co-story writing credit because we came up with the story. Then I also worked on, once the script was written, I worked on it, and we do a round table where we bring people in and we punch it up and all that stuff. So that was my involvement.
I spotted you in the film as well.
Yes, I have a bizarre
visual effects guy.
Visual effects. This is the first time I was in Me, Myself. I wasn't in Dumb and Dumber, but I was in Me, Myself, and Irene. I'm in Dumb and Dumber 2 three or four times. I'm in the background to the point where the crew, Pete kept saying, Bennett, get in there. Just get in there. And the crew finally came up to him and said, stop putting Bennett in the back. People are going to notice that he's in it. So I'm in it 3 times. Yeah. And, but in Stuck on You was the first time that Pete and Bobby gave me a line. I said, oh, what's my line? I can't wait. And I get this incredibly boring technical line, which, if I remember correctly, is I'm trying to tell the 2 guys why one of them won't be seen on camera because we're using this special process. So I say to Bob, with chroma key, the camera picks up every color except for blue. So Bob, as far as the audience at home is concerned, you don't exist. That's the line that I've waited all my life to be on screen to say. And I remember, this is the best part, it's a mouthful of gibberish, although it's actually accurate. And then Pete kept saying, Pete, their nickname for me is Barney, because we love the Andy Griffith Show. We loved Don Knotts, who played Barney Fife. So he's like, Barney, do it again, do it faster. I said, faster? It's gibberish. Say it faster, say it faster. So with chroma key, the camera picks up, and every take we go faster, faster. So funny. So now I think when it cuts in, I've said half the sentence. You hear it before you actually cut in and see me finish it off. But that was my big debut. I never got the nomination for Best Supporting Visual Effects Editor. Never got it. I waited forever. Yeah.
And then, I mean, not long after, well, quite a few years after Stuck on You, and it came out the same year as Dumb and Dumber 2, In the Blood, which is an excellent action revenge thriller. Love it. Absolutely fabulous.
That's very nice. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. That was a blast to do too. It was fun. I wrote that with my other writing partner. I only work with partners. I've never written by myself. I never wanted to write by myself. It just seemed too lonely to me to write by myself. I remember the great William Goldman, who wrote Marathon Man and Butch Cassidy, and William Goldman is famous for having said, as an Academy Award-winning screenwriter, when it comes to Hollywood, nobody knows anything. That was his, there's no, which has been quoted over and over. William Goldman said about writing, it's the loneliest thing in the world to go into a room by yourself and close the door and sit down on it with a typewriter. It's the loneliest thing in the world. I said, I don't want to be lonely. So I always wrote with partners, always had partners. So Stuck on You, or not, In the Blood was written with my writing partner, James, who I still work with today. And I've written with James for 18 years. And we just wanted to do a hard-edged female lead revenge thriller kind of. And that's what we came up with. It was a spec script that we wrote.
Oh, it's excellent. I like how the difference as well, because obviously it's a kidnapping film and they're not wanting money, they're wanting stem cells. Now, I've never seen that in any other film. Any other film of that type.
That's what we like.
That type, I've never seen it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that's a really clever little twist, because it's usually money they're after, but this was stem cells, which I always thought that was a clever little twist on the usual.
Hence In the Blood. Hence In the Blood. It's right there at the beginning.
It's right there in the title. And it's got such a great cast as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Treat Williams, rest in peace.
I know.
He's in it there as well. Cam Gigadent.
I don't even know how he pronounces it. Yeah. And then what's his name? Danny
Trejo.
Danny Trejo. Yeah. Who I end up. He has here in Los Angeles. He's got like a couple of Mexican restaurants, like Trejo's Tacos, and I go and eat at Trejo's Tacos all the time. And I've never met him. I've always wanted to meet him and go, Danny, you were in a movie I wrote. Never met him. Yeah.
Mind you, that could be one of any couple of hundred movies Danny Trejo's been in.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's probably
And
why you wouldn't remember.
he's been in so many. And I mean, Gina Carano
Yeah.
is absolute fantastic in that film.
Yeah, she was, that
You know
was
what I mean?
her. Yeah, I thought she was good at it. Yeah.
She was, yeah, definitely. I mean, from Haywire and then into that was a nice kind of 1-2 for
Yeah.
her, and probably helps make her career as well as an actor because she's superb in it. And I've got to ask you as well.
Yeah.
I've not seen it, and I want to see it.
Yes.
Santa's Little Helper.
Well, your life is not complete until you have. So I think that this should be
You know,
you need to make this happen. Yeah, that was fun. That was we did that in conjunction with the whatever the name of the wrestling organization is, the World WWE.
WWE.
Yeah,
Yeah,
WWE, because they wanted to feature the Miz, one of their wrestlers. So and that was with yeah, that was fun. I'd never done a Christmas movie. You know, I'm just a little Jewish guy, but apparently Jews write all the Christmas movies.
but apparently, and songs, and all the Christmas songs. Yeah, and welcome to Hollywood. And I'm going to ask you because obviously, as you've seen, I've been doing my
Due diligence.
research.
Yes.
Yes, and I've got to ask you about Police Academy. Now, I know you're no longer involved in that, but there was a time when you were involved, and it's not a reboot; it was a more of a requel, shall we say?
Yes. Yeah, it was a requel.
Um,
It was.
and it was going to have a lot of the old cast in there.
Yeah.
What can you tell me
That
about
was a
that?
blast. And that was a blast. We had so much fun. James and I as a team wrote that with our friend Brian Levant. Brian Levant, who directed the Flintstones and Jingle All the Way, and so Brian comes from television. He worked on Happy Days, the original Happy Days. I don't know if there's another Happy Days. And so Brian grew up he always had a writer's room, like because Happy Days, you know, multiple writers in a room writing together. So every project I've worked with Brian, and I've worked with I've probably done 5 things with him. He always would assemble writers he liked and create a writer's room to co-write he did that with the Flintstones. And so the Flintstones I didn't work on the Flintstones though, but that had like 8 writers, you know, and in the Writers Guild, it's not easy to give credit to more than a few. They tend to want to keep it. So those are exceptions on those movies where a whole bunch of writers are credited. But with Police Academy is the same thing. He got us together, a room full of other writers, and it was a blast. We had so much fun. We made that movie. The way we wrote it was, we said, let's imagine that this movie was a VHS that you took off your shelf of a Police Academy movie made now, but that you didn't know had been made. Let's make it like that. Let's not, and that was our attitude doing it, and it was so much fun. We had an interesting element for that was that the producer of the series, Paul Maslansky, he was in the room with us every single day, and I remember when he first sat in the room with it, I thought, oh my gosh, we got the producer is sitting here, like it's going to be a negative thing because we're not going to, you know, he's looking over our shoulders. And Paul Maslansky ended up being the most delightful, creative. He was part of the team, and he had so much fun doing. He said, "I've never had more fun on a movie," because he'd never been in the writer's room to see it, to be a part of it, and he contributed. So he was a delight. I adored that guy. He's still around. And what happened was we wrote it for Warner Brothers, and we were writing it for their home video division or whatever. And it's funny, I had lunch with Brian Levant yesterday, in fact, and he was telling me about this. And they only imagined their movies were going to be, this is all that they would pay for them. They had the formula worked out, and it would have been a little more expensive to get Gutenberg and Michael Winslow and all the people we wanted, who we wrote it for. And so they ended up not doing it. And at one point, even I think Netflix said, "We'll do it. We will do this movie. But we also want from you, Warner Brothers, the rights to show all the other Police Academy movies on Netflix." And they said no. So that's just it. It kind of killed it. And it's just sort of sitting there. And
That's a bloody
really,
shame.
it's
That is
too
a bloody
bad.
shame.
It is. And that sort of thing happens a lot for weird reasons, that things don't get made for odd reasons. But it was a very funny script, and it was very much in the vein of the better the first one. I think the multiple, as each one got produced post, each sequel got worse and worse as it went along, sort of like cheaper and worse.
It did.
Just,
I mean, for
yeah.
me, I enjoyed. I've seen from, was it 2 on the cinema,
Yes.
and for me, after 5,
Oh, you went.
they went.
You were along for the ride up to 5. You're
Oh,
very.
I've seen part 7 on the cinema as well.
Oh, oh, yeah. It got so
Yeah,
bad.
it was hard work. But yeah, I got up to 5, which I still enjoy. Parts 1 to 5, and 6 and 7 are a bit of a slog.
I'll tell you, fans of the movie, of the first one, or just Police Academy fans, would have really enjoyed it. And who knows? Maybe another executive shows up. Maybe they're willing to take a swing at it, or whatever. It could
Can
happen.
you
So,
give us a little on what the story would be?
a little what?
Could you give us a little hint on what the story would be?
Um, well, it was called at the time. I'll tell you, it was called Police Academy, Taking It to the Streets, and so it involves some. Can I? You know what? I better not. I better not. Just because
Okay.
it's probably not. If it was happening, I would probably not as well. But I'm not sure what the. Yeah. It's probably best that I be discreet. I'm sorry about that,
You
Paul.
can tell us when we stop recording later on. I'll get that
Okay.
out with you.
All right.
But you know what I mean. So it's
But I will say
not
that
for
I will say that I'll tell you that Gutenberg was taking the place of the original commander who died. Like he gets
yeah.
hired
He's going
to
to be the
come back.
commandant.
Yeah, to come back and be the head of the police academy. So he's in that position in the movie,
Oh, that would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
what a
wanted to
shame.
do it.
Um,
He kept calling Paul Maslansky and saying, "Is it done? Can I read it?" He was all excited about it.
have you ever seen the Lava films he did?
I don't think I have.
No,
Uh-uh.
it's there's the Sharknado films.
Yes. It's called Lavalantula.
Well, there's 2 of them, and it's got Steve Guttenberg in it, and
Yeah.
quite a few of the other surviving members
Oh,
of
really?
the. Yeah, Hooks was in there, the girl
Lavalantula.
who played Hooks, and Michael Winslow Jones. He turns up in it as well. But there's 2 of them, and these. What's the sequel called? Is it More Lava, More Lantula, something like that? It's something like that. It's just daft little hot B movie titles, which are great. I love them. I'm going to also ask you about Traction, that I believe you sold just
Yes.
before the writers' strike,
You really
and
did.
that's
You really did.
ready
Yeah.
to go into production.
You did your wow. You're like, do you do taxes? Because I'd love to hire you to do.
Do you know something? I'm pleased you're quite impressed with some of the questions I've asked. I always get a little, oh, that's lovely that they quite enjoyed that I've asked these questions.
Yeah. No, you're a completist. James and I, the partner I've written with for the last 17 years, we wrote a few years ago we wanted to do a supernatural thriller, and we had an idea of a young woman who wakes up in a hospital bed in traction, and she doesn't know who she is, where she is, how she got there, nothing. She can't remember anything. And now she's in traction, and she comes to realize that something in her room doesn't want her there. And that's the idea of traction. And what happened was, so we wrote a few years ago, but within the last year, within 2023, we had a producer come to us, and he read it. And this guy he had written and directed a horror movie before this called The Basement, but he was really kind of he was a producer and looking for material, and he loved traction. So he optioned it. And we were like, fantastic. We were thrilled. And then the strike, there was word that the strike was gonna, he optioned it probably the beginning of 2023. And then we realized that we were going to strike, and he took us to breakfast the Friday morning before the strike began. I think the strike began on a Tuesday, the following Tuesday. And he said, guys, is it really happening? Is the strike going to happen? And we said, yeah, the guild tells us. And yeah, he said, well, then I want to buy traction. I'm already optioned it, but I want to buy it, and we were like, this is fantastic. But we had to do some fast paperwork to get it done so that he could purchase it before Tuesday, before the strike. And we did, we got it done. So ironically, that script sold because the strike, pushed him to buy it. But once he bought it, we couldn't work on it because of the strike.
Because of the strike.
So that was the double edge of that. But now that
isn't the legendary Udo Kier going to be in it?
Udo Kier was, and I don't know if that's still, but yes, he was going to play a doctor at the hospital, and I don't know if he's still involved or not. But again, the writer's strike, the actor's strike, pretty much put the project on hold. But now that the writers, the actor and writer, now that they're both over, I'm sure the producer Brian Conley is moving forward with it. I hope Udo is still attached, because I'd love to see him play the doctor. It's a really great part for him, or whoever gets it. But he is
excellent.
Yeah, so that will hopefully be made. Is being in the process of being made. It was a lot of fun, and you can tell I've done. We've just mentioned 4 different genres that I've written in: comedy, thriller, supernatural, and Christmas movie. I like genres. I like writing all those different. I love sci-fi. We have a sci-fi, basically a sci-fi western that we've written that we're trying to get made, called Calico, which we love this script. And I just go wherever.
Excellent.
Yeah, I go wherever the genre leads me. I like those. I like all of those. I used to do comedy.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Well, comedy writing, you're just fantastic at. But I'm going to ask, anything else apart from Traction and Calico? Is there anything else that we can look forward to from the pen of Bennett Yellin?
This is the pen. This is it.
That's the pen.
I can't think of anything that I would mention now, because things are in preliminary to fetal form. But if there's anything else, I'm happy to come back and tell you about it when it happens.
Well, I was just going to ask you that if there's anything, any other projects, I'd love to talk to you again if you'd come back on, which you've obviously said you would. And I do hope you've obviously enjoyed our little chinwag.
Yeah, Paul, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, I commend you on, you knew all the information, and you moved it along at just the right pace. And I also appreciate the nice things you said about like In the Blood, and that's all. It's very kind of you. Writers, when do writers get that approbation? You walk down the street.
Writers should, because without the writer, there is no project.
Of course, we're the
It's
blueprint.
you guys,
Yeah.
who put the initial blood, sweat, and tears into, and you know, broken fingernails and splinters off pencils and the likes of,
Yeah.
into coming up with something that is clever and funny or thrilling or horrific or whatever. You writers are the guys that, without yous,
Yeah.
Hollywood would have been fucked. If the
Well,
actors were it not,
it's a
sorry for
lot.
putting it quite as blunt
No,
as that, but
but you're right.
the actors,
We're the first step to anything, any project happening. It has to be the writers are the first ones. We create the blueprint for the project, and then if we're lucky, we're involved with it throughout the entire making of it, and even into the post making of it. So we're really a crucial ingredient, and nobody normally goes up and says, "Oh, hey, thanks for writing that." You don't hear it. I mean, so it's nice. It's always nice to hear that somebody thought your movie was funny, thought it was, it's lovely because you don't
well,
often get feedback.
I've been a fan of your work, as you can obviously tell, because
Yeah.
of the mountains of enthusiasm. And I would like to, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
It's just a little podcast that's starting to do very well, and we've had some decent people on as well.
Good. I'm a
And writers have had. Well, you are very decent, more than decent. I've had quite a few writers on. To be
yeah.
honest, I have had a lot of writers on. One of the best who I've had on a couple of times is a writer called David Quantick, who wrote some of Veep. He got an Emmy for writing
Oh,
on Veep,
loved Veep. Loved is one of my favorite shows. Veep.
and he
I
was a
would
writer on In the Thick of It as well.
on which one? I didn't hear that. On
In the Thick of It,
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So was that was British. So that was all Armando
yeah, that was a
Iannucci.
British one.
Yeah,
That's right.
right.
So
Love
yeah,
him.
I've had
Yeah. Love Armando
Armando
Iannucci.
Iannucci's just,
Brilliant.
yeah, it's just fantastic. I've been
Yes.
following him since I can remember, and some of the things he's put out is
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. But
Yes.
I will give you one thing to watch.
Yes.
That was a mixture of Armando Iannucci and David Quantick,
Yes.
and it's called Pedo Geddon,
Spell that because eat.
as in pedo,
Yeah.
pedophile, and
Okay. Yeah.
Geddon,
Pedo.
Pedo
Oh,
Geddon.
Geddon, like Armageddon, like but Peter Geddon.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
Peter.
it was wrote for a show called Brass Eye, and it will be one of the funniest things you will see. And
I
it was
love.
wrote in the 90s.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
I
I'll
think
see.
it was the late 90s it was wrote. It's on YouTube, so you'll find
Good.
it on YouTube.
Peter Geddon.
And it's funny. And it might Brass Eye was something that they kind of
That's right.
created, and it's Brass Eye, and it's just, I think you would appreciate it. I think it could be your style of.
I love British stuff. Like I'll give you an example of things I like because I love Matt Berry. So
Oh,
I like all Matt Berry stuff, but Toast of London just made me howl. And yes, I go around saying, "Are you there, Clem Fandango?" all the time, and no one knows what I'm talking about. It just
hello.
yeah, he makes me laugh so hard. That man is funny, and of course, I love What We Do in the Shadows, but I also love his British shows, and
Have you
love them.
listened to his music?
Yes, oh yeah, of course. I love him.
Oh,
I'd love to meet that guy.
um,
He's just
yeah, I
so
would myself, to be honest.
yeah.
He's just brilliant. I mean, did you ever see another show which you might not have seen? It's
Which
Matt
one?
Berry,
Yeah,
Snuffbox.
I've seen some Stuffbox. Yeah, which is really whacked out. It's really weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, that's kind of sense of humor I like, and obviously the Mighty Boosh as
Yes,
well.
Mighty Boosh and all that. I love those guys in the Mighty Boosh. Love them. Yeah. I just
Yeah,
like
they're just funny.
I like humor. I like humor, and I like a whole range of it, from witty or sophisticated to absolute slapstick, ridiculous, and everything in between. I've got the channels on that dial appeal to me, make me laugh.
If you like your comedy, I'll give you a few British classic
Yeah,
comedy acts you might not have.
I'll tell you if
The
I've heard
two
of them.
Ronnies. The two
Two
Ronnies.
Ronnies, of course, the two Ronnies. Yeah, right. Yeah, I definitely know the two Ronnies. Yeah,
Morecambe and Wise.
I've heard of yes, Markham and Wise. Yeah, know them.
Absolutely. I mean,
And
Morecambe
those
and
are
Wise.
old.
Still
I
to
mean,
the
you're talking like they were in the
yes,
70s. They were like, yeah,
70s and 80s.
yeah,
And you'll know the likes of Benny Hill.
of course, of course.
You know what I mean? And these were staples of my childhood.
Yeah,
Watching these guys, and still to this day, the Christmas specials of the two Ronnies and Morecambe and Wise
yeah.
aired, and we watched them. And these are ones from like the 70s. I'm still to this day, every Christmas we watch the two Ronnies and Morecambe and Wise specials because they never get old. Four
Yes,
Candles,
yeah,
you know, never gets old. Never gets
yeah.
old.
And
Um,
also, once you've seen it, and you love it. When you revisit it, it's nostalgic. It's like, it's like a song that you love that has memories attached to it too. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And with me, if I find something funny, a joke or whatever, no matter how many times I hear it or see that joke,
Yes,
I'll have the
you'll
same
laugh.
reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
I know exactly, because it's like imprinted. It's like the
Whereas
original is imprinted.
that's it. Whereas some people, they've heard the joke or seen the film once, they've laughed, and then they don't. Oh, so I've seen the joke. I don't need to. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's not funny again because I don't get that.
Yes.
I
I
don't
don't
get that at all.
I'll watch something that makes me laugh, and I'll laugh hard over and over again. Even like not Dumb and Dumber, like Some Like It Hot is my favorite comedy, and I
Such a good
can
film.
watch that. I've seen it many, many, many times, and I never laugh less than hard each time at it. I just and to see it with an audience, and again, I try and see it. We have revival theaters here. I try and go out when
Yeah.
see it with an audience. Listening to an audience laugh and being part of that laughter it's a wonderful spiritual experience.
Well, one of the other reasons the Carlisle Cult Cinema Casting Club exists is because it started off the screenings.
Yes.
I started screening films
Yeah,
here in
good.
Carlisle,
Nice.
all cult movies, and then about 2018, which I said in my email, turned into a podcast. Then obviously I got ill, and it kind of went to one side. And then as soon as lockdown was things, we started back up again, and here we are. And I'm talking to legendary writers like yourself, and it's amazing. I love it. But we'll get off.
Yeah.
We'll say goodbye. If you hang on after,
Yes. Yeah, I will.
I've said goodbye, and we'll have a quick chat and things.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Yellin, Bennett, for being here. I keep on just calling you Yellin, your second name for some weird
Go
reason.
ahead. I feel like you're screaming at me when you call me Yellin, but it brings up some old trauma, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry. I do apologize. But no, thank you, Bennett, for being here. It's been, I've really appreciated it. I'm sure that my listeners will enjoy being regaled with the stories that you've told. So thank you very much. I'm pleased you've enjoyed, and I definitely 100% want you back on.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Excellent. So I'll say good night and God bless everybody. I've been PD. This has been the Carlisle Cult Cinemacast. That's been the brilliant Bennett Yellin. Good night. God bless. Thank you.